Hello everyone, how are you guys all doing today? My name is Mirko and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another brand new Apex Legends video. And in today's video I've got an absolute amazing guide for you guys because we're going to be talking about how to get more kills, which is something we all love to do when playing Apex Legends. Now I did do a similar video on how to get more kills quite a few months ago, but that was before Season 1 and Season 2 even came out, and now it's a complete different game. So in today's video I'm going to give you guys the best guide possible on how to find more enemies and pick up more kills each game. So before we talk about how to get more kills, you need to actually find the enemies in the first place, and I'm sure you guys are aware how hard it can be at times, especially towards the mid to late stages of the game, on how to actually find enemies to kill, because you can go even 5 minutes, 10 minutes even at times without finding anyone at all. And that is why the beginning, early stages of each game is so important, because that is your best opportunity to rack up as many kills as you possibly can. So if we take a look at this example that I've put on screen for you guys, I created this just to show you guys if you rotate in a particular way, you'll have a better chance in bumping into enemies. So if we have a look at the yellow example on screen, I usually do this quite often depending on where the dropship is going, but landing Thunderdome is a really good example. And then once I've looted up enough to get me through the early stage, I then go straight to Skull Town and try and pick off as many people as I can. And once I've finished off at Skull Town, I'll then move into Market and then go from Market into what used to be Bridges, but it's no longer a named location, although it's still as popular as it once was. Just a quick tip, if any of you guys planning on using this route, when you are rotating from Thunderdome into Skull Town, be sure to rotate into Skull Town using the dinosaur bones that are scattered towards the outsides. That way you can get a really good bird's eye view on the situation and you have a massive height advantage as well. Now if we take a look at the red example, which is another very popular route of navigation, going from artillery to containment and then going from containment to bunker. This is actually a really popular route that quite a few people use in this game, especially if the dropship starts at artillery, and the dropship is actually a really good indication on how popular a certain area is going to be. For example, if a dropship is going over Skull Town heading towards wetlands, then you know that Skull Town's going to be probably the most popular area on the map, and that's purely because people don't want to wait that extra 20 seconds for it to go towards artillery. People like to drop straight away, and I've noticed that people can be very impatient, including myself at times. You just want to drop as soon as possible and get straight in the action. Now this next image is what I have found to be dead zones, or very quiet areas, quieter than other areas on the map. For example, if we look at swamps usually has about 1 or 2 people landing there depending on where the dropship is heading, but I found places like swamps and slum lakes to be far more quieter than other areas that even have less loot at times. For example, swamps has far more loot than a place like bunker, but bunker just seems to be more popular at times, which doesn't make sense, but there are just some places that aren't fan favourites, and these are some of the places that I've listed. So hopefully this will help you find more enemies, and once you've actually found the enemies to engage with, that's the first step done. But the hardest step, of course, is being able to stay alive when you're engaging in gunfights. Now this is where things like repositional tips come into play, so I'm going to cover the 3 hugest tips when you're engaging in gunfights, and these 3 tips are the only tips you need when you're engaging with enemies. That's repositioning, retreating, and also holding your distance. So when it comes to repositioning, there are a lot of instances where you would need to reposition, whether it's you being third-partied or if you're trying to get into a better position than the enemies, which will put you at a huge advantage going into the gunfight. So if we take a look at this example here, as you guys can see, the storm is about to come in. Now I hear shots going on further down, and I know they're not inside the ring, so instead of going to that gunfight, I reposition myself closer towards them, but making sure I stay in the ring, so when they are rotating towards the ring, I can catch them off guard. And this is actually a really advanced tip, especially if you're playing ranked mode. It's really good to try and catch people off guard when they're trying to rotate, because they need to move or they're going to be dealing a lot of damage, especially with the storm in Season 2. It deals so much more damage than it used to, and they're in a really hard situation because they're forced to go forward, and they're going to be dealing damage by you as well because you're going to be shooting at them. So if they take cover, they're going to be dealing storm damage, and if they push towards the ring, they've got you to worry about. So either way, you've got about a 90 to 95% chance of winning that gunfight, and it's a really awesome strategy to use for people that are rotating late. And if we take another look at this example here, there's shots going off all around me, and I can see my teammates being shot at, and I've done the smart thing by repositioning on top of this building, taking the high high ground, and that actually put me at a huge advantage. Instead of going to the enemies and fighting on an even playing field, I took the upper hand and put myself in a much more safer area. Just because you're trying to go for as many kills as you can, you still need to play smartly. You don't want to play stupidly and play aggressive every time you see an enemy, because otherwise eventually you will get caught out, and you want to be able to play smart as well as get as many kills, and this is the best way doing so. Now when it comes to retreating, I'm sure you guys are aware if you're dealing damage you need to retreat and heal up. That's a simple tip that even a beginner would know, but it takes a skilled person to be able to retreat naturally through instinct during a gunfight, taking that split millisecond to completely back out of a gunfight, because as we all know, every millisecond counts during a gunfight. So when you're dealing damage and you feel like the gunfight is going a 50-50 way, that it can go anyone's way, that's where you want to completely go to cover. Now don't let the temptation draw you in. Even though you've dealt a lot of damage into the enemy, if they're also doing the same back, it's not worth going the 50-50 chance. It's worth staying alive and trying to get them next time. You don't want to draw yourself into that temptation, because some people think, oh, I've already dealt a lot of damage into them, and they just get drawn in and they get too overcommitted. But this is where the more you play Apex Legends, the more you'll start adjusting to this, and it will be a natural instinct straight away. As soon as you engage, when you're getting shot at, you'll back away immediately without even thinking about it, and you'll be able to heal up. Now when we talk about holding your distance, this is not something I see many people talk about. In fact, I don't even see many people do this when playing Apex Legends. But holding your distance is essentially making sure there's a good enough gap between you and the enemy, so if you do need to completely retreat from the gunfight, you can do so comfortably. Now if you're engaging with another team at medium range and they push about 10 to 15 meters towards you, you want to go 10 to 15 meters back. The problem here is if they get too close to you and you're not moving, once they deal enough damage into you to be comfortable enough to push, you're going to be in a huge amount of trouble. That's why you want to make sure you're always holding a distance between the other team, and once you've dealt enough damage into them, you can be the one that goes for the push. But you want to make sure you've dealt at least 120, 140 damage, so they're only a few shots until they go down. You don't want to push them, only dealing a couple of bullets into them. You want to make sure you're confident that number one, you've dealt enough damage that you're going to win a gunfight, and number two, when you are pushing this person, you want to make sure that they're not too close to their teammates, and you want to make sure you're only going against a 1 versus 1, not a 1 versus 2 or a 1 versus 3, because you're most probably going to go down in that situation. Always make sure you're holding your distance against the other team, guys. That is an absolute must. Now when you're engaging up close with enemies and you're in each other's faces, you want to make sure you're abusing the strafe mechanics. You want to make sure you're moving left and right very effectively to avoid being shot at, but at the same time deal a lot of damage into your enemies. What I like to do when I'm engaging up close is, whilst I'm shooting at the enemy, the second I've been shot at, I go straight to cover, and immediately after the enemy has stopped shooting, I poke my head out and I start shooting back at them again. And this is actually a really cool technique. I spoke about it previously in another video, but it works almost every single time. So you want to basically trick and juke the enemy into thinking that you've retreated. It's actually a really cool thing to use, and it's something that works on almost any enemy, and that is yet again abusing the cover around you. You can actually play aggressive in a much more safer manner than you think. If you've downed 1 or 2 players and you've still got all of your teammates alive, you can actually take the risk in going in for a 50-50 gunfight, because in the worst case scenario of you going down, your 2 teammates have got a huge advantage killing that last member of the squad, and they're going to revive you anyway. One thing you definitely do not want to be doing, especially up close, is engaging with people in an open space area with completely no cover around you, because essentially you only have your strafing mechanics to your help, and sometimes your strafing mechanics just isn't enough, and you need to be able to have that cover there as extra support. Now there are a few things I'd like to mention before ending the video which some people still don't do as much in this game. The first thing is that you don't want to be focused purely on looting. Looting wastes more time in Apex Legends, and if you're trying to go for things like the 20 kill badge, you don't want to waste time looting in this game. You want to make sure you have enough loot to keep you at an advantage, and then you want to go straight at the enemies. Now in the beginning stage of the game, the only loot you need to worry about is a body shield and a gun, a good gun that you're comfortable with, preferably an SMG or a shotgun, and then you want to go straight at the enemies around you. You don't want to be wasting time looking for the best loot, because the likelihood is at the early stage of the game you're not going to have the best loot, and the beginning stage of the game is where you're going to get the most kills throughout the entire game. So you want to take advantage of that and making sure you're using these tips to your best potential possible. So anyway guys, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I hope you guys learnt from this video, and in the next game you go into, you're going to be getting more kills than you usually would in a game of Apex Legends. One thing I will say is that because you're going for that more aggressive play style and you're going to be taking more risks than usual, sometimes you're going to die and you're going to end up back in the lobby. That's how it happens to all of us that try and get more kills. But you will have them awesome games where you're going to get over 10, even 15 kills at times, and you're going to feel like an absolute boss. Thank you all for watching this Apex Legends video. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch all of you guys out in another brand new Apex Legends video.